Broadcasting from the creation of time to the end of the world.
There is no freedom without the law.
Whose law, Moses? Yours?
This isn't the end, son. I know.
Buckle up, baby. This ain't your grandma's Christian show.
I've changed my life. You ain't got to say nothing. I am living for the Lord.
It's time to get down and dirty on Change for That.
And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Change for That. I am Chester Proctor.
And I'm Sedrick Thrower.
And welcome back, Sedrick Thrower. What's going on between? I think you and Kurt Tootle are really the same person. And you can't be in the same room at the same time.
Yes, I'm Superman and he's Clark Kent.
Is that what it is?
That's what it is.
Well, I was wondering. I had a feeling. Well, we're glad that you're back. I'm surprised that no one bothered to call and check on you. I mean, did they call and check on you while you were out?
Oh, I got several questions. Wanted to know if I was still on the show. And I said, as far as I know, I think I am.
What happened?
Well, you know, work has been crazy. This time of year is a busy time of year for us.
Well, let's see. Since last time our show aired, you had a birthday, Kurt had a birthday, and we've all celebrated Thanksgiving.
That's right.
So did you have a happy Thanksgiving?
A very happy Thanksgiving.
Did you eat all you possibly could?
And then some.
Good.
It was my birthday Thanksgiving day.
It was. That's right. The same day. Yeah. I guess it normally doesn't fall like that, does it, every year?
No. But the year I was born, it did.
Oh, really?
In 1977.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, happy birthday.
Well,
40, the big 40?
The big 40.
Wow. Well, congratulations.
Yeah, I feel wiser today.
Do you?
Yes, I'm going to make some sound decisions.
We'll see. We've got an interesting topic. Your first sound decision may be to plead the fifth and not talk about this first
and
topic.
not talk about it. I'm back on the show and already making waves in the water.
That's right. We're going to let you introduce. I'm going to let you kind of host this topic, and you talk to me. That's what we're going to do. We got that coming up in a little bit, and so stick around, folks. Remember, follow us on Change for That at Facebook. Become a Change for That Insider. And send your questions in to changeforthat@gmail.com or post it on the Insider page. And we won't go into the why, but Kurt, unable to be with us today, just got a lot of some personal things going on that everything's okay, but just got some personal things going on. So just keep Kurt and his family in your prayers as they go through this difficult valley that they are in at this time. Well, let's jump right into it today. The question for me... Right, the first topic. There's been a story going around, Sedrick, and it's been in the news, and it's dealing with well, why don't you tell us what it deals with?
It deals with being white in America. How about that?
Isn't that historically what most things deal with?
Yeah, true. The article is saying whiteness now a part of college curriculum. Is there a need to have a college curriculum to I guess to educate white people on what it means to be white in America? Isn't that crazy?
So that's a nice way of saying what it means to have white privilege.
White privilege, yeah.
Now, help me understand something about white privilege.
Okay.
Does it know no boundaries as far as economic status, socioeconomic status? You know, if you're a poor white person, do you have automatically? Are you accused of having white privilege?
I don't think you're accused of having white privilege, but I think it probably signifies that it's better to be poor white than to be poor black.
I can see that. Yeah, I can see that. No, I can see what you're saying.
You know.
So this story is talking about wanting to make it, actually, there's a woman, Robin DeAngel, who is a retired professor and part-time lecturer in Washington, University of Washington. She defines this term that she coined, white fragility, as a state in which even a minimum amount of racial stress becomes intolerable, triggering a range of defensive moves in which white people become irrational. By the way, she's white.
Yes.
Important to know that.
Yes.
So does everybody have white privilege and white defensiveness, in your opinion?
I think it's implied. It's not spoken.
What do you mean?
Yes. I think it's implied and not actually spoken. Hey, because you're white, you're going to have white privilege. I think that society kind of leans towards that unknowingly, unaware sometimes. I think that's what she's wanting to do, is bring awareness to the fact that when you are born white, that society kind of deals with you differently than those who are born non-white. She's just bringing awareness to that.
So let me ask you this question, and I run the risk of sounding like I have white privilege, or like I think I do, or I'm being what Dr. DeAngel would consider almost oblivious to my whiteness. Okay, but what about the other side of this issue, where there's been so much tiptoeing and tap dancing around it that there's almost around we don't want to offend anybody anymore, and that's not just blacks, that's anybody. So what about those people? Because I would almost I would not define myself as somebody who lets race get involved in my decisions and how I treat people, but I would define myself as somebody who feels like I'm almost tired of tap dancing, or not tap dancing, but tiptoeing around the issue.
Tiptoeing around the issue, right?
Is somebody going to say, well, that's just my white privilege, or my oblivious to whiteness?
I would think that it's probably because of the point of view that is being brought to you. It's always from the other side, black people feeling like they're being mistreated more so than you being white and being treated better. You
okay,
what I'm saying?
I do.
Because the way it's coming to you is like, I'm tired of that issue always coming up. And what she's doing is flipping the script and saying, hey, in order to understand where the others are coming from, other non-whites are coming from, you first have to understand how blessed you are, basically, because you were born white in this society.
Okay.
It's not necessarily like that, because now in some countries, being white is not a good thing.
Right.
Right. Or considered to have more privilege, because in some countries, believe it or not, people are actually treated equally.
Right. I thought you were going to say white people were treated worse.
No, I'm going to say treated equally, like in, let's just say Europe, in the EU. There's no privilege because you're white.
So what is privilege? What is that? What does define white privilege for me?
I think when it comes to opportunities, maybe, are given or more so to the white race in America. I think when it comes to how police relations are, sometimes the benefit of the doubt or actually being innocent until proven guilty applies. I hate to say it like that, but it is somewhat is true in some instances. Now, granted, you know, a lot of it is determined by your reaction to the circumstance.
Sure.
I know that if I'm confronted by a law officer, without being told, I automatically go into a mode of, I need to watch what I do, what I say, how I approach the situation. Just automatically fear sets in sometimes, because I don't know what the outcome is going to be. Now, when you're pulled over, however, does any of that come into your mind?
Okay, so check this out, and maybe this will speak to that. If I'm being completely transparent here, if that in this day and age, if I am pulled over by a white police officer, no. But if I'm pulled over by a black police officer, I immediately go to this mindset of they're treating me bad because the white race has treated black race bad.
Oh, wow. So, there's the other side to it, the flip side.
And then I feel this guilt because of it. Then I'm like, oh, no, you shouldn't be that way, blah, blah. But I immediately go to that.
But
it's not because I broke the law. It's because I'm white.
He's going to treat you bad because the white officers are treating his brothers bad.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
I understand. I can understand that.
And I just wonder how much of that, which is what I love about our program, is that and this is one of the compliments we get, is that we open dialogue to stuff people aren't talking about, or they're all yelling about it or whatever, but they're not talking about it.
Okay, but let me point something out to you.
Okay.
You see how you expressed that to me? The way you felt about that, and how I was able to see your side?
Right.
That's all we're asking for.
Yeah,
it's for somebody to see our point of view, not to agree with it necessarily, but to at least respect it and kind of understand how we would feel that way.
I absolutely think that if somebody can't understand that, or can't even maybe not understand it because they haven't been there, I guess, but if they can't respect that side, then I think that's a choice. Because I don't see how you can't see that. If you come to me and say that you getting pulled over by a white officer immediately makes you nervous, with the racial tension in this country the way it is, and the way blacks have been historically treated,
right.
I could not fault you for being concerned.
Right.
In fact, there have been situations, honestly, where I have asked the question, where a white judge would pronounce a sentence that I felt was harsh, and I would ask the question, or the judge would do it, and I've asked the question. Like one time I said, was the judge white? You know, and this person said, well, this black person said, yes, he was, but I don't really think that had as much to do with it as blah, 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 blah. I was taking that stance, and they called me back and said, no, it's not. So, which is not that it isn't. I guess it's never always, but it definitely is sometimes.
Sometimes. I mean, it calls you to draw that conclusion like, hey, why was the sentence so harsh? The judge must have been white. You know, it's sad to be able to, not be able to, but to have to even ask that question.
So let me ask you this. Is it possible that this woman, I understand, I agree with what we're doing now. I don't know that I like the way she comes across it, and here's why. Using terms like white defensiveness and white privilege and white fragility, it
has a negative connotation.
It does. It assumes that anybody white is going to respond in a negative from a negative perspective or with a negative response, I guess. And I think I've proven that that's not the case. At least there's one.
There's one.
You know who won't.
There's still hope.
There's still if I can just get the rest of us on board. No, you know, and I think there's probably more. I think the two things that concern me is there's more oversensitivity on all sides of this because hey, come on. I've said this before, Sedrick.
Media.
We're not even that. We're not that far removed from the days of slave ownership and slave trade.
I mean, sad but true.
If you go back and you look at this country's not that old.
It's not.
This country's a couple hundred years old, and we're only, 60, 70 years out of the civil... No, not even that. 60 or 70 years out of World War II, right?
Right.
We're like 40...
But let me ask you
50 years out of the civil rights movement, and we're supposed to... But we're surprised.
Yeah, we're surprised in some instances. But let me ask you this: is it? I'm thinking her wanting to educate what it means to be white is no more than blacks who educate their children on what it means to be black and the precautions that we have to take because of our color of our skin. I mean, I had conversations with my children so that they'll know how to conduct themselves if they're faced with certain situations, employment, you know how you conduct yourself in your interview. If you're given the opportunity to have the job, you need to make sure you're there not on time but early. You need to be, you need to work twice as hard. You need to, so that you can achieve some of these things.
I don't think that's unfair. I don't think it's unfair. I think the same thing should be taught to daughters.
Right.
In this world.
Right, because of the women, how women are treated in America. Exactly.
There's no doubt about it that being a white man on one level offers you generally speaking, because I know there are white men that would argue that they haven't been privileged to be white.
Right.
But there are people who have benefited from who've benefited from being white men, and the foundation of our country is based upon the what the white men have done, and not all of it. In fact, a lot of it has been bad.
And
I would not disagree with that, historically speaking. I think we've got to get past being so sensitive to that and start look. We need to get back to where we look at the person, whether it's the black cop that pulls me over or the white cop that pulls you over. Right. We've got to start responding in a way that says, I'm going to be on my guard, but I'm also not going to jump too quick to the conclusion that the reason I got pulled over was because of that.
Right. And I'm going to say that your socioeconomic status has a lot to do with it also, because I do know that if you're black and have some money, you are treated a little bit better. Is that fair to say?
Well, I think, yeah. I think if you're anything and you have money, any race and you have money, you're going to be treated better by people of that socioeconomic status. But I also wonder how much of an issue is it for, and I guess we probably couldn't answer this question, but if you take a black family that is doing well in America, are they experiencing life differently than a black family that isn't doing well? And again, that, like you said, it comes back to a socioeconomic status.
Right.
That maybe you kind of like the TV show Blackish.
Right.
You know how that show tries to poke fun at all of this stuff, and sometimes they get down into some real serious issues. But I haven't watched it in a long time, but when I used to watch it, one of the things that always came out to me was, what do you? I think it's comical that you put a black family in the middle of this white neighborhood, and you make all this money. So you're the rich black family in the middle of this rich white neighborhood. But what do you really know about being a poor black family in America?
Well, for once, they hadn't always been rich in that neighborhood. I'm quite sure they didn't start out that way.
What's that?
The black family in the rich white neighborhood. You don't start out that way.
Well, no, but I mean, this was a TV show. It wasn't.
Right. Yeah,
it wasn't.
true.
It wasn't a real show. But
okay.
the point was that are they trying to connect? If I can be so bold as to take this liberty, if I am a poor black man watching this TV show, I might respond with, "You have no idea, man. You're talking about issues that you don't know."
You may, but I promise you that even though they have money and they're staying in that neighborhood, they're still black.
Well, no, that's true, and that's the whole. That is the point that they.
Yeah.
That's definitely the point that they make.
I hate to say it, but Jay-Z has this song, and the title has a negative connotation, but the message behind it, that no matter what a black person does, and no matter the goals they've reached and the status that they have obtained, you're still black. You know why though,
and I agree with you, but one of the things I think hurts that is how we allow society or support society in highlighting that so much.
Yeah, I understand that.
You know what I mean? I think that there are certain things that we need to highlight when it comes to black success stories in history. But I don't know that just because here's the first black. Some towns are getting their first black mayor. In this recent election. Yeah. I think that that's fantastic. Let's say town gets their first black mayor. Historically, that's a big deal. Again, that shows you how close we still are to that history, that time point in history. We are not hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years removed from that.
Right.
If we live to be that, if this country makes it that long, I think we'll come to a point where generations down the road will just kind of be amazed that this was even a topic.
Right. No more first. I mean, we're still having first.
Yeah,
that's amazing to me.
Exactly. And we're not, but that's because we act like we're so far beyond.
But we're still having first women. First woman.
Well, that's true too, and we still haven't had the first woman president.
That's true.
So there's a lot of things that we haven't done yet in this country. We've got to remember that we're still very young. Let's take this. Mention this before we go to break. I don't think that I think you've got to be careful. And I haven't taken the course, and I wish they'd offer the course maybe free online or the lecture videos if we could find them, because it's hard to evaluate a course we haven't taken.
Right.
But I think when you're lecturing like that, I think it's great for a white person to take a stand on something like this and to use that platform that they have been given by God to bring equality. I also think we have to recognize that we are not even treating Christians equal in our churches.
Oh, good point.
So we're definitely not going to do it out in the world.
And it starts there.
And it does. It starts in our churches. And for all of you listening and wondered, how are we going to tie this back into a Christian biblical foundation? It starts on Sunday morning in your church.
Amen.
So there you go. Stick around. We got a fun topic coming up next about being married, and I hope that you'll stick around for that. Sedrick Thrower, welcome back. Glad to have you on the show.
Good to be here.
You've made it with us, and happy birthday to you, to Kurt Tootle. We miss you. Hope you'll be back with us. And folks, stick around. We got more coming up.
Change for that. We'll be right back.
Change for That is made possible on the podcast commercial free by GG's Landscaping.
Back to the show. Change for that.
And welcome back to the show, everybody. Chester Proctor along with Sedrick Thrower. Change for That heard on great radio stations like WTCQ 98Q in Vidalia, Georgia, and online at changeforthat.com, on Spreaker, iTunes, and the app for your mobile device. Sedrick Thrower, Thanksgiving on the way. I don't know how many days before Christmas, but it's on the way. Going to be exciting, praying and all for a white Christmas.
I guess it would be better than a black Christmas.
I don't even know what you're talking about. Why would I even pray for that?
It's just funny. Yeah. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, especially here in Vidalia. I mean, we never get to see that.
It's been a while, and but we can't even get temperatures down like that. We had some this week, but it's it never rains when it gets cold enough to snow, so hardly ever. We're going to talk about this topic. Before we do, though, interesting thought I just had, and that is that I was on my weekday morning show on in radio station in Vidalia, and I was talking with my co-host, and we were discussing a few weeks ago, about the national anthem protesting and the third verse of the national anthem, and how some have taken that to be racist, and how some have taken it not to be, in the argument between those two points of view, and I was paid a visit by one of our listeners who listens to that show during the week and then listens to us on Sunday, and said that loves the show, loves to listen, wanted to educate me a little bit. Well, he educated me on his. He's a son of Confederate veterans, and educated me on the Confederate veterans' viewpoint of the historic of history. But it's interesting because it got me really investigating and studying the Civil War, the reasons and the behind the scenes. And so I took a course on it, and a free course online at Hillsdale College, and which is a right wing conservative Christian school. Mainly conservative and right wing, and they are Christian faith based. But and I thought it was interesting that they actually took the stance that it was more about slavery than states' rights, whereas a lot of your folks who are Confederate veterans and sons of Confederate veterans and things like that, they will argue states' rights.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. I think I'm not going to give my point of view on this yet. I'm actually spending a long time investigating it and going to release a 30-minute documentary on radio.
Keep me posted. I would like to hear your view on it.
Yeah, I will.
Because your views are always interesting.
I'll tell you after the show, because I don't want to spoil the documentary that I'm working on behind the scenes. But it's going to be good. It's going to be called The Civil War. Chester or Sedrick, and that's what it's going to be called. What was it really about?
It was about Sedrick.
Cedric's rights or Chester's rights?
It's about Sedrick non-rights.
I'm going to have Dr. Robin DeAngel come in and talk about white privilege in the Civil War.
That would be great.
Actually, no, I am going to
get her on the show.
No, and I am going to. Her line is busy. I am going to get her. Not her. I am going to get a professor from Hillsdale College on the show.
Oh, okay, that would be
he's
great.
already agreed to come on and to be part of that documentary.
Oh, okay.
That show, not necessarily. Not necessarily your show.
Well, while he's here, let's make him
get him on this show too.
Yes,
get him on as many shows as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Well, only if Hillsdale starts paying for that. Sponsors us.
Right. That would make sense.
If they sponsor us, then we'll put them on there every week. So Hillsdale, pay attention.
Speaking of sponsors,
yes,
my mom was able to download her Change for That app on her Android.
Yes, our Android app is now available.
Yeah.
Yes. Where's your mom?
She's in Douglas.
She's
Georgia.
in Douglas. Yeah. Tell her to get it on the Douglas stations. That's the next big push.
Are we there yet?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, tell her they want to go. Tell her to go down to that station
and
right
demand
now.
for us to be
demand
on air.
it. But yeah, well, good. That's awesome. Yeah, the Android app is available now. The iTunes app iPhone app has been available. All right, so let's talk about this question. We got this one, something similar to this a while back, but I just felt like when this one came in, we needed to sit down and talk about it because there's a lot of folks who just don't know the answer to this question and they don't know why the answer is what it is. And the question is simply this: is there marriage in heaven, or are there going to be married folk in heaven? And the answer to that question is very emphatically no. If you believe what Jesus says, and Jesus made it clear. But people ask a lot of questions, and they don't know what the Bible says. So let's talk about that. If you go to Matthew
22 and 30.
Yes, sir, you got it. Matthew 22. And in verse 30, he actually just straight up says, "For in the resurrection they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like angels in heaven." By the way, let me digress for another moment here. That doesn't mean that we become angels in heaven.
Right.
Please, everyone, stop saying that.
Please say that.
Is it just me? I know I've said that before. Is it just me that drives crazy?
No. People always say, "My little angel." God needed an angel.
Yeah.
No, God don't need any more angels. He created them from the beginning.
God had enough trouble with angels.
Yes, coming down here mating.
Exactly. He didn't need any other angels.
Oh, goodness.
So the issue, and I don't want to make light of that. I think it's too late, but I don't want to make light of someone not knowing. And folks, I don't want to make light of you sending in these questions, but I do, because I want us to be here to begin the process of getting you better educated when it comes to the Word of God. But I think that what's important, Cedric, is that folks recognize that the answers to these questions are found within God's Word, and is sometimes easier to ask somebody. Mm-hmm. But I think it's also, maybe not easier, but it's more important to be able to find out for yourself and then compare maybe some commentary or some notes or some thoughts or other people's opinions. Mm-hmm. Because this is a situation where Jesus is actually being questioned by the Sadducees after the Pharisees have failed to trap him. And they ask the question, if a man dies having no children, his brother as next of kin shall marry his wife and raise up the children for his brother. And then they give him the example of there's 7 brothers. And that happens, and each one of them she basically goes through all the men, and they all die. I think she'd be called the Black Widow, because she's going in and killing all of her men. And then she turns around and dies herself, and the question is, who would she be married to in heaven? And Jesus said, you are mistaken, not understanding the Scriptures nor the power of God, verse 29. Mm-hmm. So I think it's important that we recognize
there's only
what God said to this.
There's only one marriage in heaven.
I knew somebody, well, I say somebody, I knew one of us was going to go there.
Yeah, and that would be between us and Christ.
That's right.
That would be the only marriage existing in heaven.
And when we look at heaven, heaven is going to be so amazing that these things that are blessings on earth are not going to be issues in heaven. When people say, "Oh, will my pet be there in heaven?" and all that, it doesn't matter.
Well, I think all dogs go to heaven.
I did see that. If you ask Disney, that's right.
But I think it's for our peace of mind while we're in heaven. Heaven is not meant to be for us to be tormented and tortured.
Right.
Just imagine if your husband or your wife did not make it.
Oh gosh, how awful would that be?
How awful would that
if
be?
If you knew that,
if you knew that your husband or your wife. It's the same thing with your children.
That'd be hell.
Because you're not going to even know your children like as your child in heaven. Because if they don't make it, God forbid, I want my children to make it.
Right.
It's not up to me.
And I mean, even if we have the knowledge of them not being there,
it would torment us.
Well, I mean, we're not going to be affected by it that way.
Right.
Because I think we have to assume that we would be affected by the bad things, and that would not. We might have I don't know. We might have the knowledge of certain things, but not the same effect of those things.
Okay, that's a good.
But I'm not saying that's.
Well, I think because we won't have the same body.
Yeah. See, I don't know. That's where I get into this whole thing in my mind of how is that going to work? Because obviously, what you and I are, our bodies are not the good bodies. These are not the resurrected bodies.
Right.
What is the resurrected body? I mean, we don't even know what that looks like, do we?
Well, I don't know if it's a body at all.
I mean, exactly. What is it going to be?
It just say glorified. So, I don't know.
Well, and that's the thing that
we'll be all flying around or something. I don't know.
Clouds with harps and our angel wings that we've earned.
All I know is it's going to be a glorious day.
It is a day that lasts
forever
and ever. Yeah. It's going to be something that you can't fathom. Mm-hmm. You just can't fathom it, but. People listen carefully. Heaven is for the believer who gives their life to Christ, asks for forgiveness, believes in him. And I'm going to tell you something about that. If you really, truly, honestly believe in God and Jesus Christ as his son, right?
Right.
Then you're going to want to ask for forgiveness. You're probably going to ask for more forgiveness than you need to.
Right.
Because you really only need to believe one time, and if you believe, you're not going to not believe.
Right.
If you don't believe after you said you believed, then you never really truly believed in the first place. I know there's people that want to argue that, and that's great because you know what? Men and women a lot smarter than me have had this argument going on for a long time. But that's where I take. That's the stance I take.
I just choose to believe.
All right. Well, listen, we hope that you guys enjoyed the show.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Change for That.
We are so over.
Fine by me.
We'll catch you next time.
Don't leave.